Hi there, everyone, and welcome to The Daily Gardener, and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's January 4th. Today we celebrate an English botanist who discovered which way sap flows in plants. We'll also learn about a female Dutch botanist who fought for equity and is now remembered as a trailblazer. We'll remember a thoughtful and witty garden writer whose only book became a garden classic. We'll hear some thoughts on the garden in winter from one of my favorite authors. And we grow that garden library today with a book that shares the story of the French naturalist and medical doctor, Aimé Bonpland. And then we'll wrap things up with a little garden trivia in honor of National Trivia Day. But first, I just wanted to take a second to tell you about the Daily Gardener Friday newsletter. Each and every Friday, subscribers to the newsletter get an exclusive email from me with some super useful content, including helpful reminders and tips for the week, a handy list of all of the featured books for the week from the Grow That Garden Library segment of the podcast. It's so handy. You'll also get a brand new botanist profile and a few hand-picked pieces of botanical poetry that have yet to be shared on the show. Finally, I like to make the newsletter a little more personal, so you'll see photos and stories about my own home and garden, in addition to exclusive updates about the show. It's a little behind-the-scenes VIP experience for super fans of the podcast. If you enjoy the podcast, you're going to love the newsletter. So head on over to thedailygardener.org and sign up for the free Friday newsletter today. Here's today's curated garden news. Well, Jacqueline Hyman over at the Washington Gardener shared an invasive species spotlight, and this time they were talking about garlic mustard. Now, if you have ever battled garlic mustard, you know exactly what this piece is talking about. And if you have some invasives on your property and you're not sure what they are, make sure to check out Jacqueline's article for information on this invasive, in addition to other invasives that have been talked about on Washington Gardener magazine. Now, if you'd like to check out this curated news article for yourself, you're in luck because I share all of those posts in the listener community in the free Facebook group for the show, the Daily Gardener Community. So today, when you're in the group on Facebook, all you need to do is type in the word mustard, and this post will pop up. This way, you never need to take notes or search for links. The next time you're on Facebook, just search for Daily Gardener Community, where you'd search for a friend and request to join. I'd love to meet you in the group. Here's today's brevities. Today is the anniversary of the death of the English clergyman, botanist, and physiologist Stephen Hales, who died on this day, January 4th, in 1761. Stephen applied himself to many different areas of science. He spent most of his life studying tree sap and blood flow. Do you know the direction that sap flows in a plant? Well, Stephen figured this out. It flows upward. And he also examined other fascinating aspects of plants, like the sap's pressure, and the pressure that roots exert on sap, and how fast shoots and leaves grow. He also demonstrated that plants absorb air. Stephen was always thinking about the forces around us, from our internal blood pressure to external air pressure. And it's not surprising that Stephen became curious about air quality and whether improved airflow could help fight typhus. And so Stephen invented a ventilator to purify stale air. Stephen's device was essentially large bellows that had to be moved by hand, but they were still effective, and they were used in ships, prisons, and mines. And there was another use for Stephen's ventilator. It also preserved and dried food. In the twilight of his life, Stephen had royal visitors, Frederick, Prince of Wales, and his wife, Princess Augusta, who both stopped by to discuss gardening and botany. And it was Stephen Hales who gave Princess Augusta advice on the creation of Kew Gardens. Today, Stephen is remembered in the genus for the snowdrop tree, the Halesia carolina. And since 1927, the Stephen Hales Prize is awarded to a scientist who made an outstanding contribution to plant biology science. And today is the birthday of a Dutch plant pathologist and the very first female professor in the Netherlands, Johanna Weterdijk, who always went by Hans. She was born on this day, January 4th, in 1883. In 1906, Johanna completed her thesis on the regeneration of mosses, and she was hired to be the director of a major botanical institute at the ripe old age of 23. By 1917, Johanna became the first female professor in the Netherlands. During her tenure, Johanna supervised 56 doctoral students, half of them women, and she strongly believed in equal opportunities for women. She once said, "I strive for a genuinely equal division of men and women in high positions." To illustrate how Johanna was perceived by her peers during her lifetime, check out this excerpt from the Lincoln Star Journal from October 29, 1914. Johanna had traveled to America to visit the Missouri Botanical Garden, and the article was titled, "Woman Botanist Who Smokes and Drinks Publicly." Here's what it said. A famous woman botanist who both drinks and smokes in public is now in the United States. Dr. Charles Bessey of the State University met her in St. Louis a short time ago. The name of the peculiar woman is Dr. Johanna Weterdijk, and she is in charge of the pathological laboratories in Amsterdam. She was quite enraged because botanists did not pay quite as much attention to her in St. Louis as she thought she deserved, said Dr. Bessey. She insists that women should have the same rights as men and is in rebellion against American conventions. In large hotels, wherever it is permissible, she stays up late and drinks and smokes in the lobby. Dr. Bessey has a picture of all the botanists who were in attendance at the anniversary of the Missouri Botanical Gardens. And there is Miss Johanna Weterdijk, cigarette in hand, and she appears to be the only one of any of the men or women in the picture who is smoking. And Dr. Bessey believes that there is little danger of the learned doctor coming as far as Lincoln on her American travels. Well, Johanna led an all-female team of scientists who identified the fungus that caused Dutch elm disease. Johanna's Dutch Elm Committee was a group that she formed on her own to fund additional research for elm disease. Johanna was a pioneer in plant pathology and fungi, and her system is still used to classify species. Today, Johanna is remembered for some great quotes. She said, "Both work and play are needed to create a beautiful mind." And she said, "Even fungus dies from a dull and monotonous life." Today at the university, there's a wall that shows all the photos of the professors of her time, all men, of course, and right there in the lower bottom left frame is a painting of Johanna. And almost 4 years ago, on February 12th, 2017, the Fungal Biodiversity Center Institute was renamed the Weterdijk Institute in honor of Johanna. She served as the Institute's director for over 50 years. And today, the Weterdijk Institute is the largest microbial fungal resource center in the world. And today is the birthday of the American writer and gardener, Eleanor Perenyi, who was born on this day, January 4th, in 1918. We lost Eleanor in 2009 at the age of 91. Eleanor's book, Green Thoughts, is widely considered to be a classic of garden writing. Sadly, it was Eleanor's only book. Eleanor wrote about working in her Connecticut garden, and she was not a fan of rock gardens or chemical pesticides or petunias. She once called petunias as hopelessly impractical as a chiffon ball dress. And her book, Green Thoughts, gives us many more witty quotes and sayings from Eleanor. Here are a few of my favorites. She said, "A little studied negligence is becoming to a garden." She wrote, "The double hoops for peonies are beyond description maddening to unfold and set in place. 2 people are needed, one of them with better control of his temper than I have." Here's another one of my favorite quotes from Eleanor. "I ordered a modern purple Martin house for myself and proceeded to construct a dreadful object. Unpainted, it looked like a cheap motel. Painted blue and white, it looked like a cheap Greek motel and had to be thrown out." Eleanor said, "A killing frost devastates the heart as well as the garden." And finally, here's a quote for gardeners who are sometimes too hard on themselves. Eleanor recognized that, and she wrote, "It takes a while to grasp that not all failures are self-imposed, the result of ignorance, carelessness, or inexperience. It takes a while to grasp that a garden isn't a testing ground for character, and to stop asking, 'What did I do wrong?' Maybe nothing." In Unearthed Words, today's words are an excerpt from the gardener and garden writer Catherine S. White from her book Onward and Upward in the Garden. "I have had to enjoy the winter garden vicariously with the help of books. The best for this purpose I have found is Elizabeth Lawrence's new one, Gardens in Winter, which has allowed me to share the delights of the author's garden in Charlotte, North Carolina, as well as the gardens and woods that she knows from her reading. Miss Lawrence is a classicist and can cite Virgil and the English poets as freely as she does Gertrude Jekyll and Jane Loudon. In this volume, she leads us most often to the English garden of Canon Henry Ellacombe. She also takes us to Walden Pond and Concord in the winter sections of Thoreau's journal. In North Carolina, Miss Lawrence says there are 2 springs, the first in autumn, just after the killing frosts, and then the true spring, which starts on St. Valentine's Day. But she reminds us that it was Thoreau who wrote, "All the year is a spring," and her book seems to prove this to be true, even in the North. She has collected winter garden notes and flowering dates from her network of correspondents all over the United States and shares these with her readers. And though we Northerners will envy her iris and camellias in November, her roses and hardy cyclamens in December, and her violets and hoop-skirt daffodils in January, She shows us that all winter, even in the most frigid and unlikely spots, there are flowers or shrubs in bloom, or at the very least in fruit, if we look for them carefully. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, A Life in Shadow by Stephen Bell. This book came out in 2010, and the subtitle is Amy Bonpland in Southern South America, 1817 to 1858. In his book, Stephen shares the story of the French naturalist and medical doctor Amy Bonpland, one of the most important South American scientific explorers in the early 19th century. Working alongside Alexander von Humboldt, Amy later conducted his own research and went much farther south than Humboldt. Stephen outlines Amy's movements through Argentina, Paraguay, where he was imprisoned for nearly a decade, Uruguay, and South Brazil. By exploring the interior of South America, Amy's experience is a unique account of the natural world, along with the social and economic circumstances of the era. Stephen's well-researched book is no longer in print, but you can still find rare copies online. This book is 336 pages of fascinating history showing Amy Bonpland's life in rich detail. You can get a used copy of A Life in Shadow by Stephen Bell and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for around $62. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. Today is National Trivia Day, and in honor of that, I thought I'd close today's show with some garden trivia for you. Here's the first question. Are almonds in the rose family? Second question. What is the world's tallest tree? Third question. In the 1600s, what flower had the most value? Question 4. Where was the poinsettia discovered? And finally, question 5. What is the largest flower in the world? Well, if you answered yes to the first question, are almonds in the rose family? They definitely are, along with apples, peaches, pears, cherries, raspberries, strawberries, and more. All are in the rose family. As for the world's tallest tree, question 2, the answer is the coast redwood, the sequoia. Question number 3. In the 1600s, what flower had the most value? The answer is the tulip. In the 1600s in Holland, tulips were worth more than gold and caused the crash of the Dutch economy. The craze was called tulip mania or tulipomania. Question 4. Where was the poinsettia discovered? The answer is Mexico. In 1825, the first United States minister to Mexico, Joel Poinsett, introduced the plant to America. And finally, what is the largest flower in the world? Question 5. And the answer is the Titan arum. So congratulations if you managed to get all of those right, and happy National Trivia Day from the Daily Gardener. Thanks for listening to the Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced in lovely Wyoming, Minnesota with the help of Paige Mance, Brooke Bierbaum, Kiana Rayleigh, Maddie Doyle, Natalie Decker, and Eric Begay. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media. You can follow the show on Instagram, and listeners always have a standing invitation to join the free Facebook group for the show. Just search for Daily Gardener Community the next time you're on Facebook and request to join. All the stories stories and books that are featured on the show can be found over at thedailygardener.org, thedailygardener.org. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for my free Friday newsletter. Last but not least, you can share your own gardener greetings on the show by emailing me at jennifer@thedailygardener.org. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling, and as always, have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow.